on the Intrepid. Oh yes, we get up close and personal coming up.
You never really catch your breath. In the space shuttle world, the work week was very busy, so you started to work right away. And then, if you weren't working, you stole moments to peek out the window and you look out the window at the Earth and the stars and the universe. It took your breath away, literally, and you never really caught your breath.
Can you describe what the experience was like as a pilot when you came back to Earth?
Well, actually, the re-entry is pretty benign. It is not, there's a few places where you run into turbulence at certain known places in the atmosphere, so they're expected. I guess the most visual thing about re-entry is seeing the plasma, the hot, you're inside the oven, seeing the flames on the outside as the plasma trail comes around the windows on the overhead, and then ultimately turning into a final on the runway and landing. And actually the best part is opening the hatch and smelling the fresh air.
I think it's amazing. We really went to a lot of trouble to make this more than just putting the space shuttle in a building. We went and got some really great lighting designers. We did a lot of exhibitry. You'll see a lot of text and a lot of graphics and a lot of videos in here. And shortly, within a few months, we're hoping to put some more artifacts and display cases in here. But that's kind of a phase progression there for that. But I've been looking at this for over a month now in this structure. And once the lighting came up, and once all the graphic panels were turned on, it's just amazing. And so even being used to seeing it every day, it's just still blowing me away.
And how many people is Intrepid expecting to visit?
We're hoping all of them. But come on out, New York. You got to see this. This is amazing. So we're bracing ourselves for big crowds. We have Space Fest going on this week, starting tomorrow, running through Sunday. Space Fest, NASA has come up here. There's like 40 directorates and offices. They brought stuff talking about Mars, talking about robotics, talking about space flight in the future. It's just so many things to do. It'll keep you busy all day. And then of course there's Enterprise. Come see Enterprise and be amazed and just learn about Enterprise and what you did.
Can you talk a little bit about the tiles? The tiles is what caused the explosion of the second one. Tell me a little bit about the tiles.
The tiles are meant to protect the vehicle during re-entry, and you can see on the main landing gear of Enterprise, most of Enterprise's tiles are not space-worthy tiles, are not heat resistant. They're a replica. And that's mainly for cost, because Enterprise is the atmospheric test vehicle. But here on the main landing gear door, you can see the tiles with the stenciling on them. Those are real space-rated tiles. And then you could see the damage on those tiles. That was done during the Columbia accident investigation, where they took the door off, they put the real tiles on, and they actually shot foam pieces at it to try to determine what kind of damage it took to cause that Columbia disaster.
So Enterprise was used for that test?
Enterprise has been used for testing for NASA for most of her life. Even after she was retired to a museum in Washington at Udvar-Hazy, NASA would periodically come up and take a component off of Enterprise to be tested. The main landing gear was removed at one point and actually tested in order to raise the crosswind landing threshold so that they can land more often in Florida. So Enterprise never really retired.
Now, what is the crosswind threshold for
that's a very long
shuttle
story, yeah.
versus a regular commercial aircraft?
Right, so you have crosswind landings, and a lot of New Yorkers will know, landing at LaGuardia, you're going to have a crosswind landing on occasion. And you'll feel that airplane kind of crab a little bit as she touches down, and then it kind of makes a bumpy landing. Now, every airplane has a crosswind limit, and every airplane is different. The shuttle had a theoretical, but the engineers decided to not try to land her at a crosswind of greater than a certain amount, and the number escapes me right now, like 15 miles an hour crosswind at a certain angle. NASA wanted to raise that limit so that they could land in Florida more often. So they tested the landing gear off of Enterprise by mounting it on an airliner and testing it in different crosswind configurations to see how much of that side force it could take. And the result of that was that they could raise the crosswind threshold up into the 20-mile-an-hour range, 20, 22, 25-mile-an-hour range. So making the rest of the shuttles land in Florida more often, made her cheaper to operate.
So it saved the government billions of dollars in the long run.
Yeah, very, very likely. But there was a lot of smaller components on Enterprise that were removed, little pumps and gadgets and things that were taken off and tested. And Enterprise was also considered the structural spare parts locker for those other shuttles. If a structural part on the internal side of, say, Discovery needed to be replaced, they could always come to Enterprise and find that identical part that would fit.
And would Enterprise then replenish its own?
Well, they would repair, because Enterprise wasn't meant to fly again. But you've got to notice, Enterprise did fly up from Washington, so she is airworthy on top of that 747, and she still is today.
Now, was it ever close to going up into space?
Yeah, close a couple times. They were going to consider initially, right after the test, to convert her to a space-rated vehicle. What they did determine in some of those tests is that they really overbuilt her, and she's a little heavy. They could actually, from testing Enterprise, build the subsequent shuttles lighter. Every single shuttle they built, every subsequent shuttle was lighter in weight. They learned lessons, they learned about materials, they learned the limits that were needed for space flight, and they were able to shave some weight off on each vehicle. If you take that weight out of the structure, you're able to put more payload in, take more stuff up. So Enterprise was heavy, they decided not to do it. And then after the Challenger disaster, once again they thought, let's drag Enterprise back in and replace. But they decided not to. They used spare parts left over from the manufacturer of all the shuttles to kind of put them all together.
And what's the future for America and space?
Yeah, that's yet to be seen. So I'm watching it real close. The commercial ventures that are up there, SpaceX. SpaceX had a wonderful, successful flight up to the International Space Station. We're looking at that Dragon capsule. I wish them all the luck in the world, because that's a fascinating system. And you're doing it, seems like you're doing it relatively cheaper than before, so more power to them. And then there's others out there. Dream Chasers getting ready to launch here real soon. So it's exciting times, I think.
They carried 2 equipment to the first ever modern space station.